really pleased to have Ryan here, Mr. Kaskade. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You as jet lagged as I am?
I landed this morning, so yes, probably, yeah.
I'm struggling through, but it's really great to have this chance to talk to you properly and understand a bit more about you and also really your experiences of this great market that we're focusing on here. So first of all, your general experiences of performing in this market. I know from following your career for 20-odd years, internationally always seemed to be quite difficult outside of America for you. It's always seemed to be take a while to get the traction in different parts of the world. How was Asia in all of that?
Asia and Australia were definitely first outside of America for me. Maybe Australia might even been before America, but that's just one country. So, but then I feel like Japan kind of jumped on board pretty quickly because early on in my career I was doing house music, deep house, Ohm Records were some of my first releases, and Japan had a really very strong house culture going on there. What was it? Yellow. Club Yellow, that was a big club. I never played there, but David Morales and Roger Sanchez, Death Mix guys, they were all very embedded in that culture. And they were playing a lot of my records. So Japan welcomed me, and then it kind of spread from there, went south. So yeah, Asia was pretty good to me. Certainly better than Europe was. Europe is still a battle for me. So yeah.
I saw last weekend you were playing at the Steel Yard in London. Was that?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing.
But it must seem like it's an 800 capacity intimate club versus what you're used to doing in Vegas. So.
Yeah, it's a very different experience, but it's something I love. I mean, I came up playing clubs like this, so to me it's very natural to go from a big room and then to a small room. It's still fun. In the
way that the sort of explosion of EDM helped so many people in America, did it almost have the reverse for you, as in it actually helped translate you into other parts of the world that you hadn't got through? Was it?
I think on the festival circuit it helped. On the club circuit, it just, because they're kind of two different things, right? Nightclubs and festivals, they don't necessarily mirror each other. But I felt like on the festival, stage, because I was doing so well with Insomniac and Ultra and these kind of festivals that were pillars in the US, I feel like Asia certainly was watching those lineups. And Europe too. My first breaks were like, wow, I saw you at Ultra. My first few times I went down to South America was that same thing. They were like, wow, I saw you at Ultra. And those buyers were going to these shows and seeing me. So it helped that I was getting really good positioning and great time, slots, and my sets were being seen by so many people. That helped.
And what was it, the connection with the people of Asia that enabled that market to adopt you sooner than other parts? What is it that you like playing? What is it about this market that you like performing for?
I think, there's two questions there. I think a lot of Asia is kind of like a hybrid of what's happening in America and Europe. They kind of take from those two worlds and make it their own, right? They're putting their own spin on those two things that are happening. So I'm very much a part of the landscape in America. So I think that part was translating over here. And then, what was the second part of the question?
Just trying to understand how you've connected to audiences here and how you see audiences here being different.
Yeah, as a kid, I lived in Tokyo for a few years, so mo nihonjin imasu ka? I lived in Tokyo, and so I've got a soft spot for Japan. It's a country I love. I spent a fair amount of time there. I speak the language. So for me, it was really easy to connect with them. And then I felt right at home when I was just coming to these other Asian countries. I was like, oh, man, this is, I know this. It feels like home to me.
You went on a 2-year course in Japan, is that right?
Yeah, I was a missionary for the Mormon church. So, yeah, this is 25 years ago.
This was before you started working at Om, and it was way before.
Right before, yeah.
And tell us about that experience being in Japan. And
it was amazing. I mean, listen, for anyone who's picked up from where they were right after high school and just gone and lived somewhere very different, whether it's across the country or somewhere completely foreign to them, it's a great experience. It just was being plopped down at a different city and, figuring it out, learning the language, learning how to get around. It was a good experience.
And I feel every conversation with you kind of ends up talking about drugs, okay? And
drugs.
I feel it's almost been too much of a topic today, but I think we're in Singapore and it's such a taboo subject. And the morning began here with two very kind of intense but very intelligent keynotes about the issues of facing this region and drugs, which is a huge issue. But you have been, I think, probably the most articulate and most forward-thinking artist out there on this issue. And
thank you.
Something I've noticed over the years with a lot of the stuff you've done in America. But here we are in this market. How do you view the situation here and this kind of delicacy of the drug issue in this market?
Listen, I've played Zouk, the club, many times. I don't know how many times. And I always had an amazing time. The audience was really into it. I was connecting with them. And they were sober, for the most part, drug-wise we're talking. Sure, they're drinking, having a good time. But I don't, I've written a lot about this and I've spoke a lot publicly. And I just don't feel like drugs need to be there to make it work. I feel like there's a lot of peer pressure out there when you're a kid and you're going to parties and like, hey, take drugs, you'll understand the music. I mean, I've had people argue with me early on in my career. You'll never be able to write music that connects with people unless you're high. And I was like, yeah, so I don't agree with that, but cool, that's fine that you think that. I enjoy this music sober, and I think that's possible for many people to do that. Obviously, there are people out there that are enjoying different substances and having a good time and doing whatever and doing that safely. For me, that's the most important part, that people enjoy the music and have a good time and do it in a way that's safe. For me, I've been very outspoken that, listen, I've been participating and going to shows sober my entire life. So it's possible.
How did it feel to be interviewed by Larry King live, where he asked you about, what did he say, are you living in a dichotomy, he said. How was that?
Yeah, it was a good question. I think it was an Australian reporter was like, you're like a vegetarian working at McDonald's. I was like, you're pretty smart. That's a good. I've never thought of it that way. And I still don't. Look, when I was a kid, I grew up in Chicago. I hate to wah. I grew up in Chicago, and for me, this music was always an escape. That's what it was. Like, I wasn't the guy going to the football game on Friday night and getting wasted and smashing beer cans on my head. Instead, I was taking the train into the city and listening to Frankie Knuckles. And that was inspiring to me. And that's how I got into the music. It was the music and it was the culture around the music that was inspiring and wanted me to be a part of what was happening. And I just kept taking the train into the city more and more. My parents were like, what are you doing? And I was doing that as an escape to get away from what was happening in the clique in the high school that I was going to. Because the people that were kind of surrounding the nightclub and in that Chicago scene were all very accepting, no matter what you were into. There was a lot of different people in that group. I mean, from sexual preferences to what they were doing, the extracurricular activities. It was just a really wide range of people. But I think what really drew us all together as friends is that we were all accepting of one another. And it was a very non-judgmental space. And we loved music. And we liked to go out and dance. So that's where I come from. That's the space. That's the mindset that I come from. So that's my perspective. And I think that it can still be like that. And I still come across people. Every time I do one of these things and I speak out, I always get people that come up afterwards and be like, dude, I'm the same way. You know, I found this music and I love it. And it's been, you know, it's been here for me. So,
how far are you willing to take that kind of ambassador almost type role of really standing up for making the point that it is about the music and you don't have to take drugs or drink, because we're under attack and under scrutiny in so many parts of the world, in Los Angeles right now with the LA task force, which looks like it may have come to a good resolution. But you know, we know through our work with the Association for Electronic Music that we need people like you to stand up. Armin was quite aggressive today about don't take stupid drugs or take illegal things, and feels like artists are gaining more and more of a conscience on this topic. But, you know, how far are you prepared to stand up? Because you always seem to be the first to comment. You're the first one writing stuff on blogs.
Well, you're talking about the LA Times article. That's the thing that really kind of set me off. The LA Times is it's a paper with a huge distribution in the United States, and a lot of people read it. And they wrote an article about how we're basically just a bunch of dumb kids who are all high on drugs. And they did it in a very articulate way. Yeah. It wasn't stupid. They took their time and investigated this and came up with this conclusion. So it's very offensive to me, somebody who's spent his life involved in this music and you know, a champion of the scene, and somebody who's seen it the exact opposite, that's helped so many people, that I wrote a piece and I really attacked them. Listen, I'm fine to stand up, and I've gone to Pasquale when they've had trouble in the past, and I said, look, dude, whatever you guys need, I'm here. I'm like a reasonable person, you know, like I think I can go on and speak if you want me to, on your behalf, or just as a person that's associated with this scene that, you know, that has something to say. And, you know, some people have taken me up on that and others haven't. I've never been wanting to be the guy that's out in front with the marching baton and been like, look at me, I'm sober, yay. Just because I felt like as an artist, everyone would judge me on that, where I'm always trying to put the art first. Like, cool, this is what I do. You know, do you like it? Oh, okay, cool, this is who I am. Yeah. Then it becomes a different conversation. Anyway, but yeah, I'm willing to go whatever. I enjoy speaking on these panels and taking the time out to, you know, talk about who and what we are in this scene, because it's a really fascinating, rich scene with a lot of interesting people that are very smart and well-spoken and that have done and accomplished many things over the years. It's a rich history here of 35, 40 years. You know, we're talking post-disco to now. So yeah, I'm willing to talk.
So tell me about the music side of things. So first of all, congratulations on being nominated for a Grammy for the 5th time.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. For a remix you've done of Galantis, which is a great piece of work. How does that feel? Have you ever actually won a Grammy? Or are you still waiting for that moment?
No, I'm that guy who just goes every year. Not yet. Maybe this time. Yeah.
And you recently just signed a major label deal for the first time.
Yes, I did.
Yesterday?
No, yes, I did. Yeah. Yes, I did.
Okay. So tell us about that. What was the sort of change in sort of mindset of working with a major after all these years?
For me, I felt like electronic music is finally at this place where people are very open and willing to listen to it in America. I mean, it's been a long time coming, right? I mean, this is like been this slow buzz in the underground for a long time. We've always had a really healthy underground scene in the US. But it seemed with more and more of this music kind of crossing over and having like pop culture impact, I was like, wow, maybe it's people want to listen to my music outside the club, and I should be talking to people that market and can reach those kinds of crowds. Really, that was my main motivator, is just to get my music heard by more people. You know, I've worked with, I don't know, probably a half a dozen to a dozen independent labels over the years, and they've all done a great job and have their things that they really excel at. But I felt like Warner would just have more impact and be able to get help me be able to get the music heard by more people.
Is that very much on a global level?
Yeah, I mean, this is my first, I just put out my first record with them, so I'm kind of in the middle of experiencing what it is. Making of the record was a little bit more interesting and a different process than what I'm used to. So that changed that a little bit for me, which was fine because this is my 9th album. I'm like, hey man, I'm up for whatever. You guys want to give me some input? Cool, because I've never had that before. But yeah, it's so far so good. You know, I think they when I say they, Warner and a lot of other people are just really interested in seeing where this music could go. And what interested me in them is that they didn't want to take me. I think it's very easy to sign a producer right now because there's a lot of producers out there that are just looking for direction and they want to be told what to do. But I have this, long history, and I think they just wanted to help me kind of push that further. That's why I was like, all right, you guys are the right fit. You're not trying to make me be, you don't want another Calvin Harris over here. You want some guy who's doing his own thing. And I think that's kind of where we are in America. Guys like David and Calvin have really busted through on this. It's a very, pop crossover sound. But I think we're at an interesting moment in the U.S. because people have accepted that and they've heard it and it's out there and it's been successful. And a lot of people have found the music that way and they're kind of scratching beneath the surface and discovering guys like me. And all of a sudden, I think a lot of guys that are, 1, 2, 3, 4 clicks down past the pop level are really experiencing this huge amount of growth.
Tell us about your alternative side to your sound, the Redux sound. Is that what you call it, Redux?
Yeah, Redux, Redo, I mean, however you want to pronounce it,
I went to see you play in Story in Miami a few weeks ago, and it was a very different side to you that I hadn't heard for a while. How do you kind of differentiate where you bring that out, in which markets, or is it just based on venues more than anything?
I've tried to, the whole idea of that sound came together in 2012. When I was doing my first rollout of arenas. I was doing these really large theaters, and arenas was a hard ticket, 52 city tour. And the shows they're very calculated, very rehearsed, very, it's like these massive productions, for 15, 20,000 people in each city. And which is great. That's one aspect of what I do. But then we're having these after parties every night, at 3, 4 in the morning after that venue's closed, go to, the underground club or whatever. And I was playing, just off the cuff, DJing. I was DJing. I was doing what I grew up doing. And people were like, what is this? I just discovered your music 2 years ago. I love this. And so after that summer, I was like, man, I should really brand it and name it something so it's something a little bit different and it's kind of harkens back to, something that's more rooted in just standard house music. So I branded it Redux, and I went out and I've done a handful of shows, and where I can do them where I can and where it's appropriate. When I can fit it in. It's definitely not my main priority, but it's something that I love and have a passion for, and where I can fit it in, I do.
And tell us about Las Vegas and obviously the landscape of where you live. You've been in Southern California for 15 years now?
Southern California. I've been in California for 15 years, but yeah, Southern California for the last 5.
Right. And seeing your face on billboards up and down Los Angeles, I mean, that's not something you ever thought would have happened 15 years ago, right?
I mean, 5 years ago, I didn't think that would happen. So,
so in Vegas, you're doing XS. You signed a 2 or 3 year deal to play there. How's that going now?
It's a 2-year deal. I just finished the first year. This marks the end of the first year, and it's been awesome. I started originally with them in 2010. And back then, I always like to tell this story because I think for people that are just learning about Vegas or only know about Vegas as a very far away place, it wasn't something that happened really quickly. And I'll just take a minute and tell a little bit about this because I think it's interesting. In 2009, let well, I'll back up a little bit. 2007, 2008, I was going to Vegas, 2-3 times a year, like I would visit any other American city, but I would play on off nights, like a Monday or a Tuesday night, because it's a service industry there. So their weekends, the waiters and waitresses and the bartenders and all these people that worked in the casinos, their weekend would be on Monday and Tuesday night or Sunday night. And there were some really cool Monday and Tuesday nights. And these were a lot of people that, people that worked in the shows that were moving from New York and Miami and different metropolitan areas. So they were familiar with house music because those scenes were happening in their cities. So there was always like a cool thing happening in Vegas. And then around 2008, something just started to change. The clubs would just be rammed. I mean, it was just like lines down the block, and then I forget what year ICE came online, but that was like one of the big kind of mega clubs that came to town. It was right off the Strip, and it started doing really well. Anyway, I played a few shows for the Win, and in 2009, they rang me up and they said, hey, would you be interested in, we're building a pool, and we're going to throw a pool party, and we'd like to have you come once a month during the summer. Like have a summer residency. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this sounds amazing. This is a 30-minute flight from my house. I'm like, I love this. I hope this can work out. And I said, let me fly out and see the plans for the club. So I flew out there, and like literally we stood on a parking garage and looked at this hole. That's where the pool is going to be. And they laid out the plans, and I said, you guys, I think we've got an opportunity here to do something different. And Paul Oakenfold, at about the same time, had launched his monthly party, and it was doing well. It was working at the Palms. So it was kind of in the air that electronic music was coming to Vegas. You could feel it. And I hit him up, and I said, I'll play every week. It'll be something similar to Ibiza, where they do these seasonal residencies, and honestly, man, it was like a life-changing moment showing up that Memorial Day weekend, and 5,000 people down the block on the Strip lined up to get into this club. I was just like, I think everybody involved and that was there that day, we just kept rubbing our eyes and like smiling, and we knew something had changed and that it was working, and that like it was a good indicator for America that electronic music had kind of arrived, and that was in 2010.
And now the sort of, the constant murmurings that it is starting to implode a bit there, that it is changing, that the hoteliers are kind of had enough of paying you guys the big money. How are you feeling the change?
Personally, I haven't felt much change at all. There's a lot of talk. Obviously I'm hearing it. I'm there quite often. And it makes sense. I mean, for anyone who's been in the scene for a long time, there's always like a cycle. Club opens, people are interested, they go to the club, it dies off, they book talent, the people start coming. There's always these kind of ebb and flows of nightclubs. And I think right now in Vegas, they're starting to realize that, wow, we don't have to book some of these. Some of these guys don't actually draw people. They might draw people in Berlin or wherever, where their home base is, but I think they're trying to figure out how to make more money at doing what they're doing. Because it's a high-risk game there. The fees are astronomical. I mean, to get in the club, the price of the club's it's expensive. Yeah. And I think they're trying to figure it out. And I think they will. I think there are clubs there that are doing well. I know when you see these year-end reports and Marquis doing $80 million, it's like, okay, there's some money to go around here. So I think it's too early to tell. I think in another 2 or 3 years, we'll be back here and talking about it. But it's a good indicator of where things are. And I think what was cool about Vegas, I think there's a lot of good things and there's a lot of bad things. That's a whole other panel. But it's cool that they're starting to experiment more. They realize that it's not just one sound works for one group, but another sound works, Carl Cox has been doing his, Memorial Day or Labor Day residency there. I think it's like 4 or 5 years now. And it's very successful. And this is, people are like, well, that would have never worked. It's working,
Have you experienced, we were just hearing today about Macau and that being the kind of Vegas of this part of the region. Have you played there yet?
I have. I played there, I want to say it was 1.5 or 2 years ago. I came out, and it was fun. It was interesting. You know, it was a kind of a similar crowd. I met, you know, it felt very Vegas to me. More of just kind of a party crowd that wanted, you know, more obvious songs played. But it was still fun, and they were up for it. It was a pool party, but it was at night. You know, it was a little different. It was like everything was the same, but just a little bit different, you know?
And just from your 20-plus years in this business, or 20 years in the business, looking at the Asia market, based on what you've seen cyclically change from America, and just seeing how the scene has evolved, where do you see Asia right now? Do you see it in a very positive place? Do you share this huge kind of opportunity that everybody is looking at? The reason, you know, we've brought IMS to here and China. Are you seeing that opportunity and wanting to dedicate more time here?
I do. I think this is why we're all here. I've always seen Asia as a place of opportunity, but it feels like now, it's how it felt like in 2008, 2009 in America, where there was just like tons of excitement. The people were there. It was just all kind of leading up to something. And we're going to get to see what that is, you know, and I think with, you know, you guys, all there's a lot of people that have history now, and they've seen the ups and downs, and I think it's cool that we can have these kinds of talks and conferences where we can kind of learn from one another. Because, you know, yeah, there's a lot of history here.
Any particular markets that really excite you in this region?
Off the top of my head, I think Japan's probably one of the most exciting ones. When I played Ultra there, it was last year, wasn't this last Ultra, the one before that. It just reminded me, the energy reminded me of what it was 10 years ago, where it's still so fresh and energetic and young, and you know, whatever. 10 hours later, those people had been there, and they're still like, we want more. And I'm like, okay, these guys are ready for this. They want it, you know. This 2-day festival is not enough for them. And now everybody's really going there. But even Seoul, I mean, when I played Korea, it's like people were swinging off this pipe that was a sprinkler system, and this kid climbed up this box and started going across the top of it. And I'm like, okay, he's into it. Yeah, and you know, the whole place is like heaving, and they're ripping their clothes off, and kids are climbing on the ceiling. So, yeah, I think there's just a lot of excitement. And, you know, Singapore's always been great. Zooks has so much history. It's cool we've got that here, like the foundation's laid, right? And that's where I feel like it was in America. Like, okay, cool, 20 years of all these clubs, and now these new kids are discovering the music, and it's like, just add the rocket fuel, and it's going to take off. So,
what do you, apart from the drugs thing we touched on, what do you see are the challenges for this region beyond that issue?
I think that it's big, and I mean, maybe somebody who's from Europe would be able to, America, although it's a big country, it's like when I fly to New York or LA, I feel like I'm talking to the same people, kind of. But when I go and I play Hong Kong, and then I go play, you know, Jakarta, it feels very different to me. It's like, okay, these are two different regions, two different things are happening. I'm playing different sets. There's different sensibilities in these two places. So I think, you know, these people being connected, talking with one another, you know, the people that are like really running this and getting in on the ground floor now, that they work with one another and learn how to maximize the potential of everything. Even I'm out here this weekend playing, you know, here tonight and then Jakarta tomorrow. For somebody like me, that there's only so many nights in the year that I can play. This makes so much more sense to me. And it's like, I don't know if these people were working together, these two festivals, or even if they're owned by the same person. But however that worked out, it was very smart. And it's going to attract world-class talent when you work together like that. And it was the same thing. I was here a couple weeks ago, and I did a run of a few club shows and then festivals, and it was the same type of thing where I felt like the promoters were working really well together to make it a package that was very easy for me to come and do and very worthwhile. 4 shows or 5 shows really in a row, that made sense.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking to a promoter outside, and he was explaining to me about agents emailing all the promoters at the same time, not realizing that in this market, every single promoter talks to each other and compares prices, tries to put packages together, something we've never had in Europe to that degree. I think some festival promoters on the same weekend will talk to each other, but not to the degree that we're uncovering here. It's very interesting and very positive, I think.
Yeah, it's a great advantage for everybody. Well, yeah. Not so much the agent, but that's cool. They're getting enough money anyway. That's all right.
Tell us more about your future. What do you see for life beyond being stood in nightclubs performing at 4:00 in the morning as you get older?
Is there something past that? Yeah, I love touring. It goes hand in hand with writing music, I feel like. I feel like when I'm touring a lot, I write better music. So more time in the studio. For the first time ever, I'm actually opening my own studio in Los Angeles, in Santa Monica, and that's a big deal for me. I mean, my entire career, I've been in and out of places in my home or whatnot, so there is a lot of focus with me writing and producing and working with bands and other people and other acts. That's why I moved down from San Francisco to Los Angeles, was to be a little bit more a part of the scenery there. Instead of producers ripping my sound off, I'm like, hey, you can call me, I'm down the street. You don't have to steal my sounds. We could work together and make something special. So, yeah, being in the studio more. I launched my label Arcade this year, and it's very small, budding, tiny kind of pet project of mine. But already I feel like some really cool things have come out of it. So I hope to see that growing.
You did a great conversation at IMS Engage in LA earlier this year with Stuart Price, and he's obviously moved kind of from being a DJ and an electronic producer to producing The Killers and Madonna and Pet Shop Boys, name it.
He's my hero, that guy. I love him.
Yeah. Would you like to move into that kind of area, producing bands of that kind of caliber?
The idea sounds really great, and I think on some level it would work with the right people and the right bands and the right acts. I just recently helped write and produce a record, The Brox, mainly production, but it was kind of my first venture into a full album thing like that. And they were cool, and they're friends of mine, and I really believe in what they're doing. But when I first moved down to from San Francisco to LA 5 years ago, I kind of looked into this, and I did some session work and just worked with session writers and people that were trying to make pop hits. And pretty quickly I discovered that it wasn't necessarily my thing. Yeah. It was too much like music made to order. It was just didn't feel right. It wasn't personal enough for me. But finding somebody that I love working with, and that, oh man, cool, you're doing something that is interesting to me. Yes, let's work together. So hopefully I can find more projects like that, down the road, and it'll lead to stuff like that. I mean, Stuart's been very fortunate. I mean, I look at his list of guys that he works with, and I'd be like, oh man, I think that's why he's somebody that I've always looked up to so much, because he's found bands that I'm inspired by, and he's helping, take them that much further. So,
you have a fantastic person behind the scenes in your life, Stephanie LaFera, your manager, who I've known for a very long time. She is a true New Yorker to me, and she moved to LA almost at the same time as you. Was that kind of planned to go there together and try to really move things forward?
It wasn't planned. I mean, I think we both kind of saw that everything was happening in LA, and we were both spending a lot of time there. She was back and forth. For me, it was a quick flight from San Francisco. I was just happy to get her in the same time zone. I was like, this is awesome, the West Coast. But it was just obvious in 2009, 2008, 2009, that, oh man, I'm probably going to end up down in LA. I don't know if that's forever or for a while or what that will be, but certainly right now there's so much of the business is based there. It just makes sense to be there. And it's great to be very close to her. She's been my manager for now over 12 years. This is somebody that I've worked extremely closely with and has been in charge of a large part of my career. To be able to have her close just makes it easier. Sit down and talk. We can get so much more done than over the phone. So it's been great having her on the West Coast for sure.
Great. And tell me, I saw some social media stuff about your footwear. Are you now performing with bare feet? Is that right?
I've been a shoeless guy for a long time. I wear sandals. I went to Hawaii many years ago, and they had these like $3 sandals that I really like. Anyway, I figured if I'm standing in the DJ booth for 3, 4, 5, 10 hours, 12 hours, whatever, however long a set that I'm playing that night, I probably should be really comfortable. Yeah. And when I got to a point in my career where like, oh, people actually listen to what I say and will, provide me what I need when I'm playing, I'm going to ask for those things. Like, hey, could we have a piece of carpet there? And I'll play with bare feet. And so anyway, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years ago I started. It was really when Instagram started coming around. More and more people started, because, you can't ever see the DJ's feet.
Yeah.
What does he have on? I don't know. But then when all these pictures started showing up, they're like, that dude's not wearing shoes. Yeah, I've never worn shoes.
So is that on your rider that there has to be a piece of carpet in every DJ booth?
It is. I ask for a bath mat. I try and make it easy on them. But half the time I just roll up the one that's in the hotel and carry it with me.
Okay. I'm going to throw it open to the floor. Can we get some questions from you guys?
Out of all your records you've made, do you have a favorite? Or is there one that has more reaction than others?
That's different everywhere I go, really. Crowd favorites, I feel like it's always changing. I think for me, I'm going to say an album. Strobe Light Seduction for me was a huge record. It was a huge record for me in my career, but it kind of was a turning point. Was it 2007 it came out? But I felt like was it 2008? That's when things were really kind of changing. And I feel like that record really kind of embodied everything that was happening at that moment. I don't know. So it's one of my personal favorites, that record, just because like what it means in the time of dance music and in my career.
If you can tell us your name and where you're from and what you do.
Ryan, my name is Mirak Kilic. I'm from Sydney. Just had a question for you. I bought your album, the very, very first one. It was like a house record with It's You, It's Me and all those tunes on it. I still have it. I love that record. And then you went into this sort of other genre. I was just curious to know, firstly, you obviously kept your name the same, which I thought was cool. Do you have any intention of writing another album like that? Because that was such an awesome album.
The It's You, It's Me record?
Yeah, the brown one with... it was just such a great, diverse record.
And here we go. You're from Sydney, right?
I'm from Sydney, yeah. I'm from
Sydney.
Okay,
so It's You, It's Me was a massive record in Sydney. That album and the single, and that came out in 2003, and that's that year. I think I actually DJ'd in Sydney for the first time in 2002. But that's right when I started going to Australia. And the promoter that was bringing me out there was just a kid who was running a club. And anyway, I'm giving you a long answer, but that's how things kind of started happening for me in Asia. That record kind of caught on in certain markets. And that's a tough question for me to answer. Will I write another record that's like It's You, It's Me? I feel like every record is like It's You, It's Me. I mean, personally, I didn't really collaborate with many people on that record. I did a lot of the songwriting, a lot of the heavy lifting was me. But, I mean, I do the majority of the writing on all my records. I've collaborated more, but I feel like I feel like it's a different time. When that came out in 2003, record labels could put It's You, It's Me out as a single. Because back then, people in San Francisco, people were like, that is a banging club record. You listen to it now, people are like, that's adult contemporary. You know, that's like, so the kind of the landscape's changed very much. But now, if I made a record like that, I have songs that I feel like that are very much comparable in spirit and even production style, except they sound a lot better, that are on my most recent record, Automatic, that just came out a few months ago. But that probably won't get heard because they won't be released as singles, because right now they're such quiet songs. It would be hard for somebody to play them in a set, or dance radio wouldn't pick up on it. So I think labels just have a hard time understanding the value in a song like that, you know, because we're in such a singles-driven market. So, which is a shame, you know, albums matter. I think Prince said that, something. Anyway, but yes, I'm always trying to achieve that spot of It's You, It's Me. But if there was another fan here, they would say, would you write an album, that Angel on My Shoulder song, please write an album that sounds like that. And I'm like, I think I'm doing that, I don't know. So anyway, progress, man. Yes, I'm trying, always. It's a good question, thank you.
Hello, Kaskade. My name is Machina from Thailand. I know this is going to be a very, very stupid question, but how can an Asian bedroom producer like myself can get attention from you or the big labels?
How can you get attention from artists, record labels, other producers?
Or from you?
From me? How you want me to play your records?
No. Just notice my tracks, or just
you want me to notice
discover
your song.
from.
All right,
Internet.
so this is how I did it. Let me tell you how I did it.
Okay.
Things have changed. It's a lot more competitive now, and there's a lot more people out there because the equipment to make music has become much more accessible. So your job's harder than my job was 20 years ago. I'm sorry about that, but let me tell you how I did it. I mailed burned CDs to every single person I knew. And if I didn't know them, I figured out somebody who knew them. For It's You, It's Me, that record, I burned a CD, which, listen, I was broke, living in San Francisco, living off of like top ramen, peanut butter sandwiches, and cold cereal at the time. But I got an address for Jay Hannon and Ben Watt to send promos to them. Lazy Dog, they had this amazing club in London, Lazy Dog at what is it? Notting Hill Arts Club.
Yeah, Notting Hill Arts Club. Yeah.
Anyway, I said, those guys are playing music like I'm making. So I looked to people that were kind of in the same headspace as me. You know, I couldn't send that record to whoever, some Dutch guy who's playing this banging stuff. I was like, who's working in a similar space as me? And I sent them messages, and I sent them the music, and I just was relentless. Dude, I just did this and did this. And then one day, Jay Hannon called me up and he said, who are you? What's your name? And did you make this record? I said, I did. The record's called It's You, It's Me. Do you like it? He's like, mate, I played this at the club on Saturday. People freaking lost their minds. Have you sold this record to anyone? I said, I just signed the record like a week ago. I would sign this record to you. And he's like, this record's incredible. This record's going to change your life, is what he told me. So this record's going to change your life. And I said, I sure hope you're telling me the truth, because I can't pay my rent and it's due next week, man. I'm freaking broke. So anyway, there's a lot more funny anecdotes to that story, but that's how it went. So I think what you need to do is really be honest with yourself and listen to people that are doing things that are similar to what you're doing, and do whatever you need to do to get in touch with them. The tools are there: SoundCloud, emails, promos. Find these people that will appreciate your music and get it to them and get it in their ears, whatever you got to do.
So, do you mind I can throw you my thumb drive?
Is it music that you think I...
That's what we're here for. Come on.
Thank you.
There it is. Look at that persistence. All right.
Just on the SoundCloud issue, you've been quite outspoken about the issues going on there. Tell us your current position on what's happening there with currently taking DJs entire DJ sets down, and
it's not, my issue is not with SoundCloud. And when I wrote a Tumblr piece on this, I got very upset one morning when I woke up to like, I don't know, 60 emails. This has been pulled down. This has been pulled down. And I was like, oh my gosh. And here I had been for 2 years building up this fan base and people that I could really get my music out to on SoundCloud. And I couldn't hardly blame them because I didn't own the copyright to this material. It's not their problem. I think we need to really take a moment and look at copyright law and see there's got to be a better way, and somebody who's smarter than me can figure that out. I think the flow through of what's happening and how the revenue is getting to the people needs to be figured out, because I don't know, the artists aren't the enemy. I have guys, hitting me up all the time like, dude, your song was pulled down. My mix was pulled down because your song was in it. And I'm like, listen, one, I don't own the song. And I wish I could respond to every one of these guys. I can't. So there's a bunch of dudes out there that hate me because their mix was pulled down because one of my songs was in it. I don't own that song. That copyright, I sold that to a label for a period of time. And they own that, and they've pulled it down. And probably they didn't even do it. They probably enjoy the promotion that this artist is giving with this mix. But they probably have some bot out there that's notifying them and notifying SoundCloud and taking this stuff down. I just think we're in a really messed up time right now where copyright's getting in the way of a lot of like creativity and a lot of expression. And it's unfortunate because SoundCloud's done such an amazing job and built this beautiful interface, and now it's just getting all mucked up in this copyright law.
Okay, another question?
Hi, I'm Tiffany, and I'm from Singapore. I'd like to ask you what's some advice you'd like to give to young upcoming DJs?
Young upcoming DJs. Hello, Tiffany from Singapore. I love Singapore, by the way. This is a great place.
Singapore represent.
Young upcoming DJs. I think, similar to the recommendation I made to this gentleman over here, listen, a long time ago, a DJ could be somebody that curated something special and specific. And that's it. They were essentially somebody who curated a sound and then was able to perform that sound at a nightclub in front of people and weave it and technically do something that was magical, and people could witness that and partake in this performance and all celebrate with that, right? That's what DJing was when I was a kid growing up. It's changed. There's only a few guys now. Every year there's a couple guys that are curating a super specific sound that kind of has been down here and that gets put into the spotlight because that person's been pushing and prodding and making people listen to that sound, and they bring it to the forefront. But now, more often, it's producers, people that are writing music that change, that move the needle and change the sound. So I think if you're a DJ, you need to look and see, what do you do best? Is it DJing that you do best? Is it curating music that you do best? Is it writing you do best? Or are you more of a producer? Are you lyricist? Or are you really good at writing melodies? I think really look down and at yourself and focus on what you do best. If you're a songwriter, sit down and write a lot of songs, and then go out there and incorporate those in your set. If you make mashups really well, make lots of mashups, make your set unique. You need to do something to set yourself apart, because there's tens of thousands of us. Like I said, the equipment's accessible to everyone now. There used to be this big price point, where it's like people with money. I had to mow many, many lawns to get my first record players. But now it's a lot more accessible, so you really need to work at setting yourself apart, whatever that is. If it's curating a very specific sound that's different from anyone else, or if it's writing records that are different, or writing records that are really good. So, and then just keep doing it and do it a lot.
Great.
There you go.
I heard somebody said today you have a brother who's very big in the tech world. Is that right? You have a brother?
Yeah. Rich Radin, my brother. He's 4 years older than me. And and Zephyr is the company that he started. Well, actually, he started movie clips, yeah, and that didn't work well. He sold movie clips and is in Zephyr now, which is, oh man, how to explain what they do? They basically track content on YouTube. They try and keep track of what's out there, and they help record labels find. Their big thing was, me and him see eye to eye on some things. This is one of them. He's like, instead of record labels pulling the content down on YouTube, why don't they just take the revenue that's made off of that? Let everybody post the song. Let's let everyone post the song. And if there's an ad or a clip or clicks on that page, the money flows through to the person who owns the copyright, whether it's a movie or a song or whatever it is. Let's get the cash to the rightful owner, and let fans post this stuff, because all it is an advertisement for me. When somebody puts 4 a.m. up, one of my songs, and it's got 5 million views, I don't want the label to pull it down. We got to pull this down. I'm like, don't pull it down. People are finding the music. That's what I want them to do. So yeah, that's what he does. He does it really well.
Interesting. Okay, one more question from the floor.
Hey, my name's Akshay, and I think I've asked way too many questions today. But since you brought up 4 a.m., that was the first track of yours that I heard. And I really enjoyed it because I found it was different, because it was melodic, and I found there was a song structure to it. So it was kind of like verse, chorus, music, as I would call it. Did you study an instrument, or did you study music? Do you play an instrument?
I studied music in school. I took a handful of piano lessons, some drum lessons. I am the least proficient musician in my family, which is very funny. My mom thinks this is hilarious when she goes to my show. She's like, you hated piano. Anyway. But I was in choir for many years, and that was my big thing, show choir and choir in high school. I was into singing. I enjoyed singing, but I just enjoyed being around the music, and choir was a great way for me to do it. So I studied music there, but really I didn't take it much past that. At that point, sampling was kind of coming online, and drum programming and digital audio workstations were pretty soon after that. I was already making my move into that. But for songwriting, I met somebody very early on in my career, Finn Bjarnson, who I've co-written many songs with. And when one of my first sessions that I had with a band, they'd hired me to come in and just kind of pick my brain. They're like, man, you're making these cool records. Come in and just sit with us and put your 2 cents in. And he was in the session too, and he was helping them write the song. And he listened to some of my records, and he's like, man, this is pretty cool stuff. Have you ever tried writing songs? Have you ever written poems? And I'm like, yes, I enjoy writing. I've written a lot of poems. He's like, it's not much different. You're making music. Putting words and melody to them is going to get more people to listen to it. And to me, at the time, it was a pretty radical idea, because I was this kid from Chicago, and I was cutting up disco loops, and DJ Sneak was my hero, and I was like, man, this is melodic enough for me. But that's been the biggest change over my career, getting more and more into songwriting. But it was when I moved to San Francisco, when there was that first wave of, I don't even know what you call it, Portishead and Sneaker Pimps and early Moby, and all this cool stuff was happening that was electronic music based, but they were songs. And there was a band in San Francisco called Solstice, and they were great songwriters, and I had sat down with them, and I've written with Andy Caldwell, one of the songwriters that's in the band. And that's when it became very apparent to me, if I was going to set myself apart, it was less about sampling cool records and making edits of stuff that I could DJ with, but really sitting down and writing a song and coming up with a piece of music that'll be unique to me, that maybe down the road other people would sample, would eventually happen, That's just 2000s when I kind of made that change, and that's pretty soon after that's when I came up with the whole idea for Kaskade. I was DJing and performing under different names up to that point in my career. That's when I launched that name. I'm like, I want it to be more lyric and melodic and song driven.
Great. Well, I think we're out of time. Thank you, and thank you for being the artist that tells it how it is. Definitely need a few more people who's prepared to stand up and speak for this business and what it's really about. So thank you everybody here. It's been a really great day. Thanks to Pioneer DJ, to Kaka and a team over there, and to W Hotels for allowing us to take over this beautiful building. It's been a great second year. Off to Zouk out tonight, and we've got drinks in the bar for the next 2 hours. So thank you everybody, and we'll see you again next year. Thank you.